So Carolyn talks about in her book, she talks about her journey. This is her mom that her journey was with. She did have to take this path in dementia with her mom, and it was very unexpected. She had to move. She had to move into the area to take care of her mom. It was a big move. She had lived in Atlanta, Georgia previously, and she was very involved in the American Cancer Society. She was at the national headquarters and was very involved for 20 years there. Um, she just wants her thoughts on her book that she puts in her biography is that caring for a loved one with dementia is something that you didn't expect to do, and it probably wasn't a welcome task. Usually comes as a surprise at a time that isn't super convenient. Probably never been introduced to it, hadn't had experience with it, with someone whose brain is deteriorating and causing them to behave in ways that confuse you. It's frightening, and quite likely the person that you once knew, it's frightening to them as well. So the book is for you guys, readers like you that are struggling with a new person in your life and feeling a step behind in caring for them. And her hope is that it leaves you feeling less alone and more armed with helpful ways to make your days with your loved one more peaceful and loving. Honestly, the goal now is to help them move through this terrifying time in their life the best way that you can. It's easy to get lost in the day-to-day tasks of providing care and forget who they are to you. Believe me when I say these are her words, you don't get a do-over once they're gone. So the piece of that I take is this person is still your person. And we some of you have done the Savvy Caregiver class that we present, and I whether you've done that class or you've done other classes, you know that this person is still inside there, and there's traits about this person that won't ever be gone. And it's nice when you can learn some different skills to keep that person alive and to bring that person out in them. So without further ado, I can introduce you. Hi, Carolyn.
Hello.
I just gave them just a tidbit on your bio and told them about your unexpected journey. I did not show them a picture of the book, but here's the
Oh,
book right here.
thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Not just because I get to be part of this service that community care program is providing, but because I'm in the virtual room of the very people I wrote my book for. And that makes me so happy. The topic of my presentation this morning is learning to love intentionally when your loved one is the hardest to love. Um, the topic came about after a little while. Um, but whether or not you've heard of me or read Walking with Faye, I feel like you probably already know me because I'm that woman. I'm the one you've seen sitting in a doctor's office, waiting with a scowling senior citizen. I'm that woman who couldn't keep her mother from wandering the streets at night at all hours. I'm also the one that my mother would tell to anybody in hearing range that her daughter stole her car and was keeping her locked in her house. You might be the person, I'm looking at a couple of different squares, you might be the person who doesn't know how to respond to your husband's anger that you'd never seen before, but is now coming on an increasingly rapid basis. You might even be afraid to stay alone with him now. And I could guess that there's somebody here today whose parent refuses to move into an assisted living home, even though they shouldn't be by themselves any longer. The fact that we're all here today shows that our similarities outweigh our differences, right? And one of my differences is I think that I'm just a little further ahead of you on this journey you're taking. And then somewhere along that line, I wrote a book, and it goes, something like this. In 2012, I flew down to Georgia to kidnap my mother. That's how my book begins. It's impactful. There's a solid hook. I'm told that it's a powerful read, full of relatable stories and helpful tips. And that was my intention when I began writing it, to help readers feel a little more normal, validated even, to know that they're not alone in all this, because that's how I felt. From the very first words I wrote, I was committed to telling the whole truth, complete with every embarrassing mistake, that I made along the way, and every mess I had to clean up, and every treacherous thought I had in my head along the way. Sort of like that friend you have that wants to give you all the gross details of their last stomach bug or their ER visit because it was so enormous to them then that they just have to share it with you now. And that's how it was for me. I had this incredible need to impart on others the enormity of this new foreign life I was living to hopefully save the next person from drowning like I was. And the only way I could think to do that was to write a book filled with all of those details, you know, include a nice storyline, a strong plot, you know, so that at least it was enjoyable to read, but also to make sure that I left nothing out, kind of like your friend with that graphic bodily story that they kept telling you. I had no idea at the time just how many of the me's were out there that are still out there. I mean, just look around you now at all these squares on your screen, right? A small sampling in the state of Idaho. My guess is that everyone here is experiencing your own kind of enormity on your caregiving journey. Or you soon will be, whether you like it or not. I mean, that's why you're here today, right? But what I've come to realize is that dementia, with all its chartable, documented similarities, and we all know them, those repeated stories on a 60-second loop, the paranoia, forgetfulness, and even the angry outbursts and accusations. Commonalities that might make our situation similar, but are equally as unpredictable as that twisting, darting snake, you know, that we can't seem to hold on to with a steady enough hand to control. And what an analogy, right? I mean, who wants to grab onto a snake? But it kind of feels like that's what we've just been handed. And it's like dementia has this uncanny knack for choosing the unsuspecting and the ill-prepared. I think if I asked any of you new caregivers right now, you'd likely tell me that you have no formal training, right? No spare hours left in the day for that added someone's unpredictable, ever-changing needs, and little or no patience for dealing with those frustrating new behaviors that come with dementia. I mean, how many of you asked for this to become a new dementia caregiver for your loved one? I mean, who would? And there you are. You're busy raising your kids. You're getting them through school. You're concentrating on your career, your relationships, your household, and then wham, someone needs your extra time now to care for their extra needs, which you have no idea how to fulfill, or even how you're going to carve out that extra time to squeeze them into this life you've created that likely doesn't have their name at the very top of your job description, right? And about that word, you know, dementia, we use it so freely. I probably am going to say it 15 more times this morning. And you're probably going to hear it a lot from this day forward, including what you've been hearing. Whether it's Alzheimer's, Lewy body, frontal temporal, or a diagnosis that your special person hasn't even received yet, but you're certainly aware of the fact that something's going on. It's an all-encompassing word that holds dozens of nuances, just the right amount, it seems, to keep us guessing, uncertain, and always feeling one step behind. And now it feels like you've got to find your way along this new path that leads to who knows where, and without a map to get you there. So you're definitely in a special category of pioneers right now. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, until someone walks your shoes, the shoes of a dementia caregiver, they'll never fully grasp the all-encompassing disruption to your life as you knew it. And top that off with the constant indecision over whether you're even making the right choices for your loved one. The conflict between what you know is real and what your loved one perceives to be real. And even the resentment that you'll probably feel in this new life you're trying to adapt to. It's a lot, isn't it? It's monumental. And I'm here this morning about to tell you to find a way to be more understanding. more patient with your very likely misbehaving, difficult, maybe abusive, even unlikable loved one that you're trying to find room for in your already very full life. I mean, that is the title of my presentation, and I'll get to that. First, though, let's talk about the help you need now, just to peacefully coexist with your special person and provide the care for them that they need. Resources are everywhere these days. They're meant to guide us through the behavioral challenges thrown by our loved ones with this terrible disease. They're geared to support us, to help us feel less alone. They give us suggestions on how to handle those personality surprises and maneuver through the impossible situations we'll already have and will continue to find ourselves in. The Idaho Community Care Program is a great example. I was reading up on it last night as I was preparing for this, and I have no doubt that they're a program filled with innovative ideas, informative skill setting, and any number of potential situations and solutions to help you with your individualized needs. On top of that, there's the Alzheimer's Association with an endless supply of online classes, articles, even a 24-hour hotline that you can speak with a real person when you're in a jam for free. And there's other helpful resources too, like other online communities, videos, books, all easily found with a quick Google search. There truly is something for everyone now, and I hope you never stop investigating them, because you never know where you'll find that gold nugget of help. For me, it was books. It was 2012 when I became a new, surprised, unprepared caregiver. Just that short time ago, online resources were pretty limited. So I began looking for what I needed in a book. I searched for one written by an author who was experiencing the same things that I was with my mother, and I kept coming up short. I couldn't find even one that I could connect with fully. They were either written for a more medically trained reader, or their dementias that they described were already a good deal further along than my mom's. I even felt resentful comparing my situation to celebrity memoirs. I mean, how could they possibly know what it was really like for someone like me? I was just an ordinary person. I didn't have the benefit of paid in-home staff, and I couldn't afford a place to take her for in-home care, and nor was she ready, or I. I was really just an everyday person, frantically treading water while trying to live my everyday life. Where was that down-to-earth author who was dealing with the same paranoia, confusion, accusations that my mother in her earliest stages was hurtling at me, all the while trying to keep their job, their family intact, and locate help that they could afford? That was me. Here I was making life-changing decisions for her while she was insisting that every one of them was wrong. She told me I was deceiving her. She told me I was even hurting her. I definitely was disappointing her. She had me doubting myself about as often as I was sure that I needed to step in and take control over her life. Decisions I was not prepared to make on my own, but there I was doing just that. Because in the beginning, my mother was lucid and believable at least half the time, which was doubly unsettling. Sorry? Oh, which was doubly unsettling, since it had me wondering if it was me who was overreacting. Some days it was easy for me to see that she needed my help. Others, I truly did feel like that controlling, judgmental, mean-spirited daughter that she told me I was on a daily basis. I was apparently hell-bent on barging in and making her life miserable. And these two differing opinions, they flip-flopped in my head on a daily basis. I was always off balance. I never knew which mom I was going to meet that day. So I was never fully prepared for either of them. And I hadn't planned on an extra job title called "You're about to become your mother's caregiver who needs your help but is going to buck you every step of the way." So I made mistakes. I can look back on the day that my sister and I surprised her in her driveway in Georgia by showing up and telling her that we were taking her on a summer vacation to visit me in Idaho. And we loaded her suitcase in my sister's car, which she drove back to New York to wait while I emptied and disinfected my mom's house and drove her choicest possessions 3,000 miles cross country to Bonner's Ferry and set up her new house to look as close to her old house as I could get it. There were dozens of snafus along the way, and it took us 2 weeks to get her over to Idaho. But we got her there mad as hell and confused. I still remember the morning a few weeks later after she'd arrived, and she was out on one of her frequent walks. And I asked if I could join her. There was a 50-50 chance that her answer would be yes, and today it was. I could tell something was off, and I still hadn't mastered any of the skills that I needed yet to diffuse her and keep the peace. So I was immediately on edge. And we ran into one of her neighbors who she'd already met at least 5 or 6 times before that. And I reintroduced her, talked about the weather, and my mother launched right into, can you take us to the grocery store? Because my daughter has me locked in the house. She's punishing me with no money and no food. Now, I wish I could have told you how cleverly I handled that morning, how smoothly I glided through the conversation without a hiccup. Instead, I turned to the side and I rolled my eyes at the neighbor and mouthed something about my mother not knowing what she was talking about, that my mother could absolutely hear. And she turned on her heel, and our walk was officially over. And I had to chase her down the sidewalk, trying to convince her to go back home while our neighbor was just left there standing with her jaw wide open. Just another example of how convincing my mother could be. There's something now called a dementia card. I don't know if you guys talk about that, but I didn't know what it was at the time. It's something that you may want to touch on later, but it's a little business card that you can print anywhere on your computer now, or you can just cut some out on your own and write down whatever you want. But something to the effect of, hi, I'm Carolyn. This is my mother, Faye. She has dementia. Please excuse us and thank you for your patience. Or something like that, that you can actually hand to somebody and say, hey, let me give you my business card. Give me a call later and we'll talk about insurance, or whatever you want to say that your loved one will fall for, because there's probably something you can come up with. So while I continued to make my mistakes, I continued to visit my library. I scoured the shelves for that perfect book to help me be a better daughter, a more natural caregiver, smoother. I didn't have a name for it. I just needed help. I swear I read every book on dementia that I could find. The librarians often had a stack waiting for me when I'd get there, and I'd scour through them. And every single time I could not find what I was looking for. And it finally occurred to me that the notes I had been taking and the emails I had been sending my girlfriends and my sister, together, they compiled the pages of the book that I wished I had had, with all the scenarios that were happening in it. And I began paying more attention and writing things down and literally creating chapters as my mother's dementia progressed. It was an 8-year book that it took me to write, because I ended it with the very last part of my mom's life. I started writing things down that had been happening to me, and I hoped to give real examples that way that people might expect, to even share some of my own tips and how I coped with truthful scenarios that worked for me and the things that didn't. And I would say I did accomplish that in the book. I've spoken to so many people along the way who've told me how I captured that feeling that they had and how it helped them not feel so alone, and experiencing those same emotions that we don't easily admit to others, that we're too ashamed to. I've listened to their stories of despair, fear, even rage. And there have been so many times that my heart would break for them as they relayed to me the scenarios that were so like the ones I just heard from the person before them. and many that sounded a lot like my own. But since then, something changed with how I perceived what I wanted my book to represent to the readers. I started noticing a common theme other than the feeling of helplessness and alone. Something that I hadn't expected that was coming from these conversations I was having, and more than any other emotion. And we can all list a handful of them, can't we? Helplessness, fear, indecision, impatience, anger. But it was regret that I kept hearing repeated over and over again. Regret. It was regret over a certain tone they remembered using, or a sharp reaction that they had felt ashamed of, even regret over the way they felt about their loved one, always wishing that they'd done better, felt differently, been more loving. And somewhere along the line, I came to realize that the true purpose of my book, or at least it's what I hope readers will come away with, is to remind and even nudge the new caregiver toward more patience, more empathy, more humor, even while you're on this journey. Because while we're so anxiously searching for strategies to cope, to get along, to manage this seemingly unmanageable and often unlikable person that we're now caring for, we're losing sight of the very things that made us love them. Now we're busy. We have to figure some things out that we have no idea even to begin with. We've got new personalities, difficult personalities, doctor's appointments, medications, insurance forms, schedules. And all these things are just the necessities, right? Even with all that said, though, there's no doubt in my mind that providing all these things is like giving little gifts of love, whether you realize it at that moment or not, because there are so many small ways to give it. You give love every time you get them dressed. You feed them, you give them their meds, you get them to their appointments, when you spend time with them, when you make sure they're cared for and clean. And I know these things are just on your new list of job responsibilities, but they're also like giving little gifts of love. Now, that being said, don't get too complacent, because giving love is not the same as showing love. And that's where they're different. Showing love, to really show your love, is so easy to lose while you're giving love, while you're busy taking care of business. See, we've become taskmasters now, right? Our edges have sharpened. Our responses come quicker, snappier. Sometimes we scowl. We're hurried, right? We sigh. And whatever their stage of dementia, they know. They hear it in your voice. They see it in your expressions, your hurried actions. They feel it in your touch. I know this. How many times do I wish now that I could go back and do things differently? What would I give to change that one regretful interaction, or 7, that I had with my mother before she got to the point where she could no longer communicate with me? Because that time is coming, if it hasn't already for some of you. Those times when she was most unlovable, shouting hurtful things at me and behaving in ways that the mother I know who raised me never would have. And what did I do then? Did I look for ways to reassure her, to ease her fear and shoulder her blame? I did try, but most of the time, and especially in the early days, I reacted. I rationalized, I denied, and I defended myself to her. I didn't understand back then what was happening inside her mind. I just wanted her to see reason. I wanted it to stop. But all the mistakes that I just mentioned to you are common to the indoctrinated new caregiver. But they're also ones that can truly be corrected with some practice and intention. And since you're here today, ready to dedicate a very precious block of your time to this webinar, and I'm guessing that is your intention since you're already here. And as for practice, Every day is a new day to practice. That saying found its way onto a sticky note on my bathroom mirror, and it stayed there for years, just kind of washed around it. It says, "Today is a new day to make mistakes." Say it now with me, brothers and sisters. Today is a new day to make mistakes. It's a new day to practice showing love. It's whatever you want it to be, really, because it will be here tomorrow either way. So why not start now? Believe me, it took me lots of practice to realize that those times when she was at her ugliest were also the times she was feeling the most frightened and powerless. In her mind, her own daughter had taken away every bit of autonomy she had left in her life. And she lashed out with me with the one thing she did have control over, and that was her responses to me. Her jailer, her caregiver, whatever you want to call it, that's how she viewed me. And half of you are probably jailers here too. I was the person charged with keeping her safe, and the sole person she believed responsible for taking everything away from her: her home, her car, even her electric bill. She missed that. She asked for it repeatedly, which she never paid. Everything she knew that was her life was either different now, or it didn't make sense to her anymore, or it was just gone. And I was responsible. This woman, she was once vivacious. She was young. She had a job. She attended church, married a man who raised 3 children with her. And what did I see when I looked at her now? Mostly a cranky, difficult old woman who refused to take a bath and just wouldn't listen to simple reason. Like it was a choice she was making against me. So easy to do. But the times I did get it right, those times when I placed myself squarely in her shoes and imagined what it must be like to wake up in a bedroom that was positively foreign to me, or see myself entering the kitchen for my morning cup of coffee, only to find that someone had clearly broken into my house the night before while I was sleeping in my bed, and removed all the cups from the cupboard and left 4 gallons of milk out on the counter, all in varying degrees of sour and near bursting. That I could truly see my mother for the frightened, confused person she now was, struggling to make sense of this twilight zone she was forced to live in. It must have been terrifying for her. And can we truly imagine living in a world that's so topsy-turvy and scary like that, only to be told, sometimes sharply, that it's all in our head, right? By the person we love the most, trust the most, until we don't trust them anymore, because we're convinced now that they're lying to us. They must be. They have some ulterior motive aimed at us. There's no way else to explain it, right? We know what's right, and they're telling us it's wrong. Now, who do we trust? Those were the times when I was able to let go of my anger, that righteous indignation of the falsely accused that I held on to so tightly, the put upon, and feel my genuine love and sympathy for her to return. It was on those days when I was able to replace my newfound burden of responsibility with a more gentleness toward her that I knew she could feel too. I saw her for the woman she once was. She still was. And it helped her. And I know it helped me just as much. I didn't do it enough, though. And I wasn't always successful when I tried either. And I wished I'd figured all this out sooner, while I was so busy just trying to deal. Because after that, the after part was hardest for me. The what ifs, right? That I don't get to test out anymore. And it's the thing that I'd most want to help others realize, that you're now able to change even the habits you may have already formed already. Now, while you're still walking on this path with your person. And I know there'll be times when you want to just leap off course, charging in the opposite direction to escape this torturous daily change you've been witnessing in your loved one, or you soon will be witnessing. How many times did I? But for now, your person is still here, and so are you. So you get the chance to a do over every single day until they leave you. It takes practice when they're firing tennis balls at your head, but you'll get plenty of it, sometimes in one sitting. I'm sorry, Mom. I know it feels like I haven't been to see you in a couple of weeks. I'll try to do better. When I said that to her, and each time I felt like I got that right, it was like a weight had been lifted off my chest and hers too. I saw it. Easier said than done. I also know that. But today, for this day, while you're here refueling your tank with new ideas and methods and good professional advice, hold on to that hopeful feeling of doing better because you can. It just takes desire and lots of practice. And you're already here. So you're halfway there. And I think I'd like to end it with that.
Thank you, Carolyn. That was beautiful. Is there anyone out there that has any specific questions for Carolyn or um, suggestions, looking for suggestions for different behaviors, or we'd sure love to have some interaction with our guests.
Unmute those mics.
Unmute those mics. That's right.
I'd like to meet a couple of you. I'd love to hear a few people tell me what they're here for. You know, what are you looking for today?
Part for me is listening to the part where she was accusing you of, like, when you were meeting her neighbor for the fifth time, and
Yeah.
she's accusing you that she lock you lock her in the house or whatever. That must be so difficult to hear. And then how do you um tell the person on the other side that that is not the truth? Otherwise, they'll think that you are a molester or an abuser, rather than seeing her in a different angle. I mean, if it's her neighbor, she probably would have known by now that she had Alzheimer's.
In the early days, you're right. It happened all the time. It
Yeah.
happened every single social situation I put myself in with my mother. I took her to the bank to start her own bank account because she was accusing me of stealing her $77 pension check. As we're standing there and shaking the banker's hand, he said, you have a very caring daughter, Mrs. Devencolis. And my mother said, yes, she steals from me. And I just stood there and looked at him, and I there's not much you can say at that time. Those little business cards are pretty handy. if you have a couple on you, just say, hey, here's my business card. Give me a call. Let's get together for coffee. Here's my number, and hand it to them. That might say, hi, my loved one so and so has dementia. Please excuse us, or thank you for your patience. But truthfully, I got less and less concerned with that, Nan. I felt like after a while, it happened so often, I just would kind of go, and smile at the person and hope, just hope that they got it. But it's very hard. Yes.
Nobody ever called in and reported you as an abuser based on what she said.
Nobody ever did. Thankfully, I live in a small town.
Yeah.
So many people knew my mom was coming because I was telling everybody, I'm moving my mom here, I'm going out to get her. So I actually had my phone number on the keychain that she carried with her. It did not have her house key on it because I was afraid that somebody would come into her house with her. But it said, if you find, hi, my name is Faye, please call my daughter. And it said Carolyn and my phone number on it. And my phone rang a couple times a day. And it wasn't too hard for, I think, them to see after a little bit.
Yeah, the part that worried me when I was reading your book is her crossing the highway. That would just like, oh my God. I don't know how she made it over there.
Heart attack.
Yeah.
It was right before I made the final decision to find an assisted living home for her. I had promised my mother that I would never do that. I was raised promising my parents that we would never do that. It just became this thing they would say to us as young adults: "Don't ever put me in a home," and I would never.
Okay.
But after some of those more scary incidences that happened, I realized that my 3 trips over there a day, which felt like 30, were still not enough. And she needed eyes on her 24 hours a day. And then a whole new set of problems ensued trying to convince her to accept that. And that's when I learned about fibbing.
I wish like that at that point where their memory is way off that they don't realize they're in a nursing home, you know?
It wasn't working that way. She knew
Yeah.
full well that she was moved from her home, and but her roof was being replaced, and that was enough for her to believe. Mom, the roof is bad, and they have to take the whole thing off. So we have to literally move you right out of this house into a condo where they are going to cook your meals for you and everything. And she took that.
Cool.
Yeah. It was
Oh,
it it was a group like yours, this one right here, that helped me come up with some of the stories that I told her because I was terrified. I never lied to my mother. My mother would have seen right through that. And I thought for sure she was going to just call me right out on it. And the group said, "Do it, Carolyn, just try it. Try telling her this." And I did, and it worked. And then I was like, well, I'll try another one. And after a while, I got pretty darn good at it.
I laugh, Carolyn, because Nan's part of the support group that I lead in Coeur d'Alene. And how many times has that topic come up, Nan, where we talk about the fibbing piece of it and how hard it
Yeah.
is to, yeah, it's just not easy to do when
When
that's
you're
what,
not a natural fibber.
no, yes.
But you get so used to it now. I'm so used to it. Otherwise, I can't survive without it. I just do it, not think about it anymore.
That's a good point. What you really need to ask yourself, I think, is how do I want this conversation to go? Right? Like, what do I want my loved one to feel when this conversation is over? Do I want them upset with me?
Right.
No, I don't want that. I want them relaxed and satisfied. So, what can I say right now that's going to give them that without jeopardizing their safety, right? But this or admitting that you're doing something that they're accusing you of, it's a difficult line to walk because you want to try to deflect or distract a little bit, and you don't want to admit to something nefarious, right? Like, yeah, mom, I am stealing your $77 pension check. I didn't want to do that, but I said, you know what, let's open a bank account for you so that you can see it go into your bank account every month. And she was happy with that. So I just found a little, on the very next breath of her saying, "You're stealing my money from me," instead of, "No, mom, I'm not," which I did say 100 times. None of that worked. I tried a different tact, and that one did work.
Thank you, Carolyn. Any other questions or comments or anything that you'd like Carolyn to hear or answer for our caregivers out there?
Yeah. Did your brother ever really come out to help at all, or did he just stay in Atlanta, totally lost in his own world?
He stayed in Atlanta, and he actually passed away
Oh,
about
sorry.
2 years before my mother died. Yeah.
Oh,
It would have broken her heart
yeah.
if I had told her that. There was just no understanding it. My brother was an alcoholic, and it wasn't something that my family ever discussed. So it was the quiet, I don't know what you would call it. But yeah, he did. He passed away, but to the very last day, I told her he was coming, and it worked every single time.
That's great. Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Never once did it fail. And every time I would almost think to myself, nah, this is the time she's going to say something like, you keep telling me that, how come he's not here? It's been 7 years. It never did that. She just took it every time. It was like this smooth balm. I'd say, Dale's coming. He's putting in for his vacation time and he's coming. And she'd say, okay. And it worked.
That's great.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Carolyn, did your mom have hallucinations or delusional behavior?
She did not. Hers was not, because I know they have them broken down into different kinds, and hers was not that. I often hear that related to Lewy body, and often Parkinson's, I think. But my mother, in the end, on her death certificate, was diagnosed frontal temporal dementia. And I was surprised by that because never once through this whole thing was my mother diagnosed. She was non-cooperative when I would bring her to the doctor. As soon as they said something, and I was always amazed that a doctor would say, now, Faye, who's the president of the United States? I mean, what did they think she was going to do when they asked her a question like that? She immediately, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to make me sound crazy. That's what my mother would say. Who wouldn't? So she never did get an official diagnosis.
Yeah, I'm a caregiver for my wife, and I don't have a diagnosis other than maybe one of the worst doctors I ever went to was a neuropsychologist who did a lot of testing, and then after about an hour and a half, abruptly left the room and said, "I have to take a phone call." That was the end of the conversation. And then they handed me a piece of paper with a referral to a psychiatrist in Spokane. It was actually an office, not even a person. And that was sort of the beginning of like, what the heck is going on and where do I get help? And that was about 3 years ago. But she was diagnosed with delusion and hallucinations. Um, did find a doctor who prescribed a medication which she wouldn't take. She was also very uncooperative about everything, especially doctor appointments. So I never knew if she would go or not. And we got through that period. Never got an official diagnosis, but she does have hallucinations. She does see people that aren't there. She talks to people that aren't there. Talks to her friends on her magic phone. She doesn't even need an instrument. She can talk to all her friends, and she'll have conversations that last most of the day, which is fascinating to listen to because at times she'll get angry, sometimes she'll laugh, and she'll be talking like a two-way conversation. So it's been, if nothing else, entertaining at times. And we found a medication and a GP doctor that has helped her a little bit, but not a lot of resources in terms of doctors I'm in Moscow, small town, and there aren't a lot of resources here for that. So I've used YouTube and other online information, which has been very helpful because my biggest anger, if you will, or frustration was I didn't know what I was dealing with. And especially someone who's seeing things that aren't there, believes things that aren't true. And she had never been like that. And it literally happened overnight. It was like, woke up one day and she didn't know who I was. And then she said, oh, well, I think I had a nightmare or something. And it went downhill from there daily. She used to walk out and go into people's houses, neighbors, unannounced, and people we didn't know. We had just moved to Moscow. And I was on speed dial with the local sheriff because they said, well, we got your wife down here about 3 miles away. And she walked into a lady's house that she wanted to be best friends with. That lady didn't want any part of it. And then I would go pick her up. And so we had a lot of those kind of incidents.
Yeah, back to those individualized stories, right? Everybody's got different stories, but then this kind of general commonality,
Yeah.
foundationally, we've got that.
And basically, the help I get is um, one, it can't be cured. We're not sure what it is. She won't get better, but everybody's different.
Yeah.
And it's like, now deal with that.
Yeah.
And I've learned to deal with it, and you've touched on it, is learning how to love her.
The new her,
The
because
new her.
this is not the old her, and you've got to
It's
hold on to that.
and it has it's a matter of the will, because when they are angry, when they are forgetful, when they are nasty, and all of these characteristics were never characteristics that she had for the 59 years we were married.
Yeah.
Totally different. And the people stealing her stuff, this and that, and for a while, making all the mistakes of trying. I'm a fixer, so I'm going to make it better. I'm going to show her where she's wrong. I'm going to correct her behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Never works.
No, they just they just want to be heard, right? Something's wrong inside. They know something's wrong. They don't know exactly what it is. They're afraid, they're
Yes.
looking for support. It just doesn't make sense to them. And they're trying to tell you, and that it's not correct, but this is what they really, really perceive is happening.
Yep. So
So
as I've learned to love her through it, is actually was a counsel I got from a pastor, which at first I thought, sometimes we just have to love them through it. I took that with a grain of salt, like, right. And then I learned what it meant.
right.
And that means you don't love them because they're lovable. You don't love them because they're right or any of that. You love them, period.
Yeah.
And as I started doing that, everything got better.
Yeah. And you found a way. And that's the thing. You didn't stop
Found a
looking.
way.
Right.
Didn't
Just
stop looking.
yeah.
And so
And
now
different.
we even have great joy being together,
Yeah.
even as bizarre as it is at times. And these are some of the best moments and days of my life.
My mother did best when I presented like a team, like, okay, Mom, let's figure this out together. She did best when I said, let's try and find that quilt, she'd say, somebody came in and stole it. Somebody came in and stole
Yeah.
your grandma's quilt. And I'd say, okay, shoot. Well, let's see if they dropped it somewhere while they were leaving. And then we would go on this little treasure hunt in her house, and I would find it in her oven.
Yeah.
And I'd say, look, and she'd say, how did it get there? And I'd say, they must have hidden it while they were making their escape and didn't come back for it. And then that issue was over. It was a new day. And now it was the magazines, and all of the magazines were missing. And I said, let's just go hunt for them, because maybe they dropped some on their way out, and we'd find them between her mattress. And she'd say, how, and I'd say, I don't know, but we're so lucky, right, to find them. And as I approached it that way, I'm not kidding you. In the early days, I said, Mom, nobody has broken into this house. Mom, that's ridiculous. You must have moved your magazines and you just can't find them. Nobody's breaking in. That was the worst thing I ever could have said to her, because she said, you don't believe me. You're trying to make me sound crazy. You're not there for me. I mean, I can't tell you how many, and this would be an argument that would go on all day with raised voice. I could nip that right in the bud just by going on a treasure hunt with her to find those magazines.
Yeah, we had a few all-nighters looking for the kids that got stuck inside our walls, up and down the stairs. And then she would go to sleep and I would be exhausted, and that would be the beginning of a new day. And
Right.
those were very, very difficult times, especially not knowing what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
So
none of us really are in the beginning, are we? I mean, none of us are really sure what we're dealing with. And each one of our loved ones they're showing it in different ways, right? Like you just said, James, you've got hallucinations with some, you've got paranoia with others, you've got repeated stories on a 60-second loop that never seems to end. You've got forgetfulness, you've got accusations, you've got it all. And bless your hearts, you've all got to figure it out. You've got to figure out how you're going to make this work with your particular situation.
But I found out in all, in my 3 years dealing with it, 3.5 years, is that even crazy people respond to love.
That's a great T-shirt. I think I want to have a T-shirt that says that.
I do too.
Crazy people respond to love.
Well, Carolyn, if
that is
we've heard anything today, we've heard that, every day is a new day.
Yeah.
I hope you heard that, and I hope you know that you can reach out to us at any time. Fortunately, we're running over on time. Carolyn, we really appreciate your time. We will invite you again. We'll have you, and we'll let everyone know that you're coming so that they'll have their questions that they didn't get to ask. I'm ready for next time. But thank you for your time, and guys, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time out. We know how much you love your person. And go ahead, Carolyn.
So you don't have to buy this book. Go to your library and ask them for the book. It's at Coeur d'Alene, it's at Sandpoint, and they'll order it for you interlibrary loan if they don't have it on hand. It's free to you. So this is not a book selling conversation. This is a how can I help you conversation.
Thanks for the help.
Really thank you, Carolyn.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you.
pleasure meeting everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.